Welcome everybody to a very special Bleepin' Truth. We've actually flown in a former FBI chief of Southern California. Ted, I want to thank you for being on the show. And I see a lot of times on shows where they cover conspiracy theories and they'll have a lot of things they talk about, but today we have someone that was in the FBI. He was personally hired by J. Edgar Hoover himself. Ted actually brought in his FBI identification when he used to be an FBI agent. When did you first become an agent?
Chris, I entered on duty December 10, 1951, and that picture is dated May of 73, I believe, so that's about 35 years old.
35 years old. So Ted's here because for those of you that have been watching politics, there's been a lot of sex scandals starting in the last couple of years. They've always been there. But we had the Foley case last year. He was trying to pick up one of the White House pages. Just recently we had Senator Craig in Idaho in an airport bathroom. And I don't know for those of you that caught the St. Pete Times today, but Ted and I were talking and we happened to see this at the newsstand. But there's a sex scandal here with the St. Pete person in charge of the city council. Now, Ted has spent his life investigating where all these things have come about, and he's actually investigated some of the most interesting scandals that you'll probably never hear. They'll get whitewashed, and Ted has brought actually quite a few documents on a lot of the things he's going to talk about. And for those of you out there, we have put the documents on bleepintruth.com in Adobe format if you want to take a look at them. But Ted, thank you for being on.
Chris, it's a pleasure to be here. It's a great city, and thanks for the tour this morning.
Not a problem.
And the breakfast.
Yeah. I want to start out with how you actually came to be in the FBI and how J. Edgar Hoover himself hired you at 22 years of age.
Well, I graduated from the University of Nebraska with a Bachelor of Science degree, Business Administration. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a number of offers from insurance companies and so on and so forth. Didn't want to sell insurance, and I heard about a fraternity brother of mine who was president of Hormel Meatpacking Company in Austin, Minnesota, and I said, well, I'll go up there and try. And I applied. I was accepted. I was a salesman for Hormel Meatpacking in Detroit, Michigan in the 1950s when right after I got out. And I'm driving down Grand River Boulevard, and I heard about a friend of mine, Dick Kinsey's his name, who had applied and was accepted in the FBI. And I'm saying, if Kinsey can get in, I can get in, because I'd always had an intrigue with the FBI. Because he and I used to play poker together and, chase girls in college and all that, which all the young guys do. So I applied. I drove right downtown, applied, and I'll never forget the agent's name. His name was Zimmerman.
Uh-huh.
And I was 22 years old. You had to be 25. You had to have 3 years experience. And he said to me, well, he says, I don't know, you're a little too young to apply for the FBI. I says, well, okay, I guess I can forget about it. He says, no. He says, do this. He says, write a personal letter to J. Edgar Hoover. Tell him, although you're only 22, you look like you're 28. Well, I actually looked like I was 19. So I wrote this personal letter to J. Edgar Hoover, and I said, although I'm only 22, I look like I'm 28. I still have a copy of that letter, by the way. And next thing I know, 6 weeks later, I'm an FBI agent in Quantico, Virginia, training, shooting, and all that sort of thing. Collection, preservation of evidence, and the rules and regulations, and all that sort of thing that you have to go through.
So J. Edgar
14-week training course.
He got the letter, and you got hired on as one of the youngest FBI agents.
Yes.
And that was in 1951.
December 10, 1951, I entered on duty in Washington. Huh?
So now talk about the one thing that I found very interesting was, how did J. Edgar Hoover, everybody knows about his personal files. He had dirt on everybody. Talk about how he wound up getting dirt on just about most of the politicians in power at the time, and how he was able to use that as an investigative file. But how was he getting dirt on everybody out there?
Well, he was highly criticized, particularly after he died, because they had all these confidential files in his outer office. But they were there for a very practical purpose. And what happened is, let's say I'm an FBI agent and I go to a bank robbery, and I interview you, you're a witness, and you tell me what the suspect or subject looked like, 5'10", so on and so forth. And you give me that information. Then you say, oh, by the way, Mr. Gunderson, I have information about a Congressman XYZ who visited a house of prostitution, and he paid for the service with a personal check for $100. By the way, that did happen to a congressman from Tennessee. That's why I know about that individual. But and so when I write up two reports, I write up a report on the bank robbery, and then I write up a little separate memo on Congressman XYZ, and I send it to Washington. And Mr. Hoover would take that file, put it in his outer office, and keep it there. We couldn't get to it as supervisors or as agents, but he had it there for a very good purpose. So let's say that later on we're going to consider Congressman XYZ for an ambassadorship or for a judgeship of some sort. Then we go to the file, pull it out, and investigate it. So it was there for a practical reason, but he was highly criticized for it. And after he died, they burned the records, of course. Jim Adams, a friend of mine, who was an assistant director, was charged with the responsibility of burning those records.
So now in your tenure with the FBI, you were there 27 years.
27 plus years.
Now talk about, I know one case where in Philadelphia there was a terrorist hijacking, I believe?
Hijacking.
And what was your role in that?
Well, I arrived at the airport about 8:30. They'd taken over a flight, National Airlines Flight 496 from Miami to Philadelphia. And they were on the outer runway with 113 passengers, 7 crew. It was a 727 Boeing. And I arrived there about 7:30, 8 o'clock, I guess. And I talked to Joe O'Neill, who was commissioner of police. I said, Joe, you and I are going to work together. So Joe and I each put on bulletproof vests. I said, Joe, let's try and get on the plane and talk to these individuals, see if we can talk them out of it. So we got in a car and we were driving down the runway, heading for the plane. All of a sudden we look up and here's the plane's coming at us. They saw us coming, I guess. And the plane came down, took a 90-degree turn, and it stopped. And so we turned around, went back over there. And what happened is the pilot jumped out the cockpit window once he stopped because they were running out of fuel. And we found out later that the skyjackers wanted him to take off, and because you know, they're trying to get out of there, I guess. But he didn't have enough fuel to take off and turn around and come back. The plane would have crashed. So he was actually a hero. We didn't know at the time. So anyway, I started talking to them on the handy-talkie and the radio and so forth. And we went back and forth for 2.5, 3 hours. And I told them they wanted $600,000, 3 parachutes, and a second 727 with fuel in it.
What was their agenda?
Money.
They wanted the money.
They wanted the money. They didn't want the passengers. So I argued with them for 2.5, 3 hours, and I said, I'll give you the money if you let the passengers go. And they finally let the passengers, agreed to let the passengers go, let them get on the second 727. They took off. They were later, they had to land, make an emergency landing in Texas because they did run out of fuel, because they left the engines running while I was negotiating with them. And they negotiated in Texas for 9 hours and finally gave up, and ended up getting, one got 50 and one got 60 years.
Wow. So now you
probably in jail today.
So you had a storied career, and you also you were in charge of Southern California. Is that correct?
Most of Southern California. I had 16 offices under me, and I had 3 special agents in charge. I was a senior special agent in charge. I actually replaced an assistant director. They changed the title in the field then. And we had 24 supervisors under them. I had over 700 personnel and $22.5 million budget, yes.
So you, the way I understand it, at one point when J. Edgar Hoover had passed away, you were actually invited to interview for the job as FBI, overall director of the entire FBI.
I was interviewed in 1975 in Dallas, Texas for the job, yes, for the director's job.
And why did they hire an FBI agent overall?
No.
Why did they not hire an FBI agent to head the Federal Bureau of Investigations?
Well, that's the presidential appointment. You'll have to ask the president that question. But they didn't want another Hooverite, and I was basically a Hooverite. Hoover had been in the FBI, head of the FBI for 48 years. I served under him for 21 years. He was a great man.
What was he like when you'd go into his office?
Well, he sounded like a machine gun. He'd start talking. All you could do is just nod your head up and down or backwards or whatever you want to do. And his desk was elevated, and you always looked down. You were sitting down, you had to look up at him. Psychological situation. Kind of like what you have here, Chris. But anyway, it was staccato, and they would, when you'd come in, the administrative division would review everything that happened in your office, like how many fugitives did you have, how much recovery of property and all that sort of thing. And then he'd go over that with you, and then he'd say, thank you very much, and you'd get up and you'd walk out.
Now, being that you served under Hoover and, you were privy to a lot of things, did you know anything about JFK or RFK at the time?
No. At the time, I knew nothing. At the time that Jack Kennedy was shot, I was working a unit in FBI headquarters known as Security of Government Employees. And what we'd do, if we heard of an individual who was a security risk, who was actually a government employee, we'd do an investigation on them. Then they would be reviewed by a board and so forth. And then right after that, after Jack was shot and killed, I was transferred over to work special inquiry White House matters. And we had to investigate overnight like 1,500 people for the White House since Johnson came in and the Kennedy people left. And so
you wanted background checks on everybody in the White House.
Everybody, yeah. That's what I did after that for about 2 years.
So you checked out everybody that was in the White House.
Right. Did a background.
And did they turn up clean?
No. More questions? No, I had one. He was a member of the Communist Party. He was a homosexual, and he had all these other things going against him, and they hired him anyway. I remember his name. I won't say it here on the air, though.
So now, how about what's your take on JFK after leaving? What have you found out through your sources and the people you know?
Well, first of all, I've learned on my own.
Yeah.
That the night before Kennedy was assassinated, there was a meeting, a party and a meeting at the Clint Murchison Sr. home in Dallas, Texas. Clint Murchison Sr. was a big oil man, very wealthy, a personal friend of J. Edgar Hoover, by the way. Mm-hmm. And in that meeting, in attendance, I know for a fact, was Lyndon Baines Johnson. His girlfriend, Marjorie Brown, personally told me that he was there. She was at the party, but she didn't attend the secret meeting afterwards. And when he came out of there, he told Marjorie Brown, I think her name was, after tomorrow, we won't have to worry about Jack Kennedy. He actually said that to her. I've got that on tape, by the way. I give away free DVDs.
Right. So now, let me ask you this: she told you that LBJ knew about it. Who else was in that meeting?
Well, there was Lyndon Baines Johnson. There was the Hunt family, members of the Hunt family. There was the Murchison family, and I'm sorry to say, according to the information that I have, J. Edgar Hoover was there too.
Why would they want JFK, or why would anyone want him dead at the time?
Based on my research, he was going back on the gold standard. He was upsetting the oil men of Texas, and he was going to make some changes. 10 days before he was shot and killed, he warned the American people that there was an enterprise, a criminal element enterprise in our government operating covertly. And he said that before I leave office, I'm going to clean this group up. And they're still operating. You see, the government, our government, there's two elements. There's the overt and the covert. I was a member of the overt group. The covert group are involved in assassinations, drugs, kidnapping children, so on and so forth. It's black operations, we call it.
So now, Robert F. Kennedy shortly thereafter was assassinated as well. Now talk about how you feel, that went down.
Well, Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. He was murdered. He was shot by more than one bullet. There were Sirhan's gun would hold 8 bullets. There were 11 bullet holes in the door and the wall in the kitchen. So there were 3 bullets that nobody can explain. Now, Daryl Gates, who was chief of police at the time, tried to explain it away in one of his books, in a book that he wrote, but I didn't buy it. You can't buy it. You can't.
He tried to, the ricochet or?
Yeah, that's baloney. You know, it's just like the magic bullet theory of Arlen Specter and the Jack Kennedy assassination. It took a 90-degree angle here, it hit a bone, it took a 90-degree angle there, and all that sort of thing. I mean, both assassinations, Bobby and Jack, because they were going to clean up America.
They had both had gotten a glimpse of the government that most people did not, the covert operation.
Absolutely.
And their agenda was to clean that covert operation right out of the government.
Absolutely. There's absolutely no question about it. They were not going to tolerate it.
So now, but then what do you make of, let's say, Sirhan? Someone could say he was, a crazy gunman sitting in there. Who was Sirhan in your estimation?
Sirhan, I believe, was a mind control victim. He claims to this day he doesn't remember anything, and that may be true. Because, you see, right after World War II, our government brought in 900-plus German scientists who were involved in the mind control program. The CIA began operation of this program. They called it MK Ultra. These 900-plus German scientists were infiltrated into hospitals, the government, universities, and so forth. And they continued this program. And it was a mind control program. It's a combination. The way they do, they take people, they take victims. There was a movie called Manchurian Candidate. Mm-hmm. They take people and a combination of drugs, hypnosis, and torture. and they may have multiple personalities.
Well, more
through
recently
that.
they had the Bourne Identity, where the guy was basically, he didn't even know who he was.
Well,
half the
that's
time.
it. That's what the program
do
is
you
all about.
believe
You're
that-
talking about the movie.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it seems like the MK Ultra project. Do you think the MK Ultra project is still ongoing, or wasn't that
Absolutely.
exposed in the 80s?
Oh, absolutely. They changed the name to. See, Congress investigated it in '78.
Right.
And they slapped him with a wet paper towel and said, "You quit doing that, CIA." And we said, "Oh, we're awfully sorry. We're going to quit doing it." Well, they didn't, and they call it. They got a new name for it. I can't. It's not off the top of my
Sure.
head right now. Marathon. It's called Marathon now.
So now these are people that, do they take them from childhood, or how do they brainwash someone from the military?
A lot of the kids are from military dependents, and a lot of it dovetails into the satanic movement. There's more Satanists, active Satanists in the country than people realize, and they start training. In fact, they use the covert black operations of the government uses the satanic cults to their advantage, and many of the people in the operation are actually Satanists.
All right, well, let's get into that, because that's one of your specialties is satanic cult movements, and this will give people chills out there. This is stuff that's going on modern day. But let's just discuss, in 1979, you retired from the force as a retired FBI chief in Southern California. Who was there at your ceremony when you retired?
I had over 600 personnel at my retirement party. I had Governor Jerry Brown, former Governor Pat Brown. I had the Chief of Police, Daryl Gates. I had Sherman Block, the sheriff, and
You also had a very popular, was it Red Skelton?
Red Skelton was there, and he gave a little speech. And the way he started out, he says, "Last week I received a call from Art Cassell." Art Cassell was a mutual friend of ours. I knew Red Skelton. And Art asked me if I believe in freedom of speech, and I said, "Yes, I believe in freedom of speech." And Art said, "Good, you're going to speak at Ted's retirement party for free." Okay, that's the way he started out. And then there were some other actors, and the mayor was there, and so on and so forth. I had 600 personnel people at my party.
So now there's two lives to you. There's the life that you spent in the FBI, and then there's a life that comes after, which is just as interesting when you go out on your own as a private eye. And I guess you were just out there to help people because you're on the government pension, right, after you retired? So at the time, you took on, talk about the case you took on right after you retired.
Well, I retired and opened my own private investigative firm. And before I opened my firm, I was asked by Attorney General Griffin Bell, who worked under Jimmy Carter, President Carter, to coordinate security for the Pan American Games. And I went to San Juan, Puerto Rico the summer of '79, coordinated the games, came back, opened my firm. And my first major investigation was the Dr. Jeffrey R. McDonald case. He's a former Green Beret doctor who was convicted of murdering his wife, 2 children, in Fort Bragg, February 17th, 1970. It's quite an illustrated case, a lot of publicity on it. He was tried, convicted, sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences. His defense team hired me, some of his doctor friends did, said he's innocent, will you investigate it? And I began my investigation. Within 10 months, I obtained a signed confession.
But at the time, were you a little bit leery to take on a gentleman that looked from the surface was guilty, especially with someone with the moral character that you carry?
I go into every case with an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I make up my mind once I get in and develop the facts. I don't assume anything in the beginning.
Did you tell them anything?
I told them that right in the beginning. I went out and talked to Dr. McDonald. I said, if you're guilty, I'm not going to do this.
Right.
If you're innocent, I will. I'm still working on it. The man's innocent.
So talk about what happened. You said 10 months you got a sworn. I
ended up with a signed statement from a girl named Helena Stokely who said that he did not commit those murders. They were committed by her satanic cult group. And she gave me all the details of movement in the house and everything else. We ended up presenting that in a hearing, and we were ignored. Now, the latest developments on this case is very interesting because I was just on Discovery Channel earlier this year. Latest developments in this case are in 1997, the judge ordered DNA tests. And the judge said that only the prosecution could be present when they opened the evidence envelopes. There were 15 evidence envelopes. And the prosecution came back and said, oh, yes, well, there were 5 envelopes that were empty. We're sorry. and he would only let the prosecution be present when they opened them. So what happened to those evidence in those 5 envelopes? We don't know. But the DNA tests have been completed. I understand that the tests are on the judge's desk, the results, and he has refused so far to conduct a hearing.
So you think this is part of like the covert operations you're talking about?
Absolutely.
So now, explain why a satanic cult, what's their motivation to go in and kill Dr. McDonald's family?
The motive for the case, Helena Stokely's satanic cult group, that's who actually committed the crimes, were involved in distributing drugs that were being flown in from Southeast Asia in the body cavities, plastic bags in the body cavities of the dead GI during the Vietnam War.
Which you've provided articles and news articles about this.
I researched it at the UCLA library.
So they were actually smuggling drugs in the dead cavities of Vietnam vets that were passed away.
That's right, in plastic bags in the dead cavity. And so if this satanic cult group was identified as the perpetrators, the murderers, the assailants, what would they have done? That would have opened up this whole operation. So they had to put a lid on it. They had to cover it up.
Well, because Dr. McDonald was the doctor that when these guys would have overdoses, they'd go to?
Well, he was in the civilian hospital, the Moonlight Civilian Hospital. So they'd go to him rather than to the military hospital.
Gotcha.
Because they'd be given dishonorable discharges. Somebody in the civilian hospital was telling the Army about it, and they were still being given dishonorable discharges. So that's what it was all about. That's the reason for the cover-up. And Colette, the wife, had skin under her fingernail, which would have eliminated Dr. McDonald completely as the person who committed the crime, and that skin disappeared. It was given to William Ivory, the chief investigator, CID, Army investigator, and he said he claims he gave it to the laboratory, but nobody knows what happened to it. He says that. But
and so what you're saying is, even with DNA evidence, the judge will not reopen the case?
I'm saying that the DNA evidence right now is available and nobody will review it. They refuse to have a hearing on it.
So this man will spend life in prison?
Well, not if I have anything to do about it. I'm writing a book on that particular case right now, right as we speak. Hopefully, because of my book, we'll be able to get enough publicity or enough pressure that somebody will take a look at this case.
Now, when you first started hearing about the satanic movement, were you shocked that something like this was going on?
Well, the reason I first started learning about satanic activity in this country was because of the McDonald case. Because when Alina gave me this confession,
so before this, you had no clue?
No, I had no idea. I'd heard about Satan in the Bible.
Sure.
That's it. But after Helena gave me this information, I went public with it. And I was on national TV. I was on CNN, a number of other national shows, on radio talk shows all over the country. I've been on, I guess, probably 1,000 radio talk shows in the last 25, 26 years. And people just came from all parts of the country to me. I was like a magnet, like a sponge.
So anyone that wanted out of these satanic cults will come to you asking for help or just talking to you about
People from the West Coast, East Coast, South, Midwest, they came and gave me the same basic story about satanic cults.
So talk about what's going on with these satanic cults.
Well, many of these people are multi-generational, meaning they were born into it. And once they're born into it, they have secret meetings, of course, and they worship Satan. They have human sacrifices. And they even sacrifice their own sometimes. They have what they call breeders. These are women who are specially impregnated so they can use the children or the fetus that are born for their human sacrifices. And based on my research, there's about 4 million plus practicing Satanists in America today, about 1.5% of the population. I derived that figure from a confidential source in the South Bay area of Los Angeles, where there's about 200,000 people. And I was told by an informant that there's about 3,000 in that area. Lincoln, Nebraska, about 200,000. I was told about 3,000 there by second source. Third source, Iowa City, Iowa, 100,000 population. I was told there's about 1,500 there. So if you project that figure, you're looking at 1.5% of the population of the United States. And they are involved in, according to another 3 different sources also, there's 50 to 60,000 human sacrifices per year in this country.
Okay, but the question that people will tell you is, where do these human beings come from? Because obviously,
well,
they have to be accounted
for. First of all, they've infiltrated law enforcement. They've infiltrated prosecutors' offices. They've infiltrated the judicial system. They've infiltrated across the board our basic elements. They've infiltrated virtually every level of our society. So what happens is, first of all, they have their secret meetings. They often have, oftentimes they're in underground. They have underground compartments in their home, chambers in their home, and it's all private. Nobody knows about it. And and then they dispose of the bodies through different means. They're experts at covering up their tracks. I've heard of them even putting them in vats with acid in them.
So now, when we hear about like thousands of missing children going missing in this country every year, where do they go?
First of all, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which is an adjunct of the U.S. Department of Justice, and if you go to their website, the last time I checked it, they said there are 91 Americans disappear every hour in this country. It is estimated 85–90% are children. If you project that figure, talking about several 100,000 children a year disappear in America. And these children are being kidnapped off the streets, and I have documentation that an organization known as the Finders out of Washington, D.C., has, since the early 1960s, been actively involved in kidnapping children off the street. Okay. Now, unfortunately, as a result of some of my research, I learned through a U.S. Customs Treasury Department report that the Finders is a CIA covert operation.
So why do they want these kids? What do they do?
The kids are auctioned off. I talked to one of my sources, told me he's attended 6 auctions where kids were being auctioned off. He was part of the network, and there were as few as 6 and as many as 36 children that were auctioned off. They were each auctioned off for up to $50,000 each. The children are ages 2 to 21, boys and girls. They put a label, a number around their neck, tie a string around their neck and put a card with a number on it. They bid. They put them up on a stage. They bid on the number. The kids come out. They put them in an airplane. There's one base a small field about 50 miles out of Las Vegas, Nevada, which is where some of the auctions are taking place. Put them on an airplane. Kids leave. They disappear. And the kids are all doped up, of course. They put them in campers. The kids are, once they're in the camper, they dope them up. They're sleeping. The police stop them. They say, "My kid's asleep. Leave them alone," and all that sort of thing. And they use these kids for sex slaves. They use them for body parts. And they use them for their sacrifices.
All right, talk about the case that you had discovered where they were bringing kids into the White House.
You're talking about the Jeff Gannon case.
No, I'm talking about they were shipping them in during the Reagan administration. I believe you called that the Franklin cover-up.
Okay. You're talking about the Franklin cover-up?
Yeah, talk about the Franklin cover-up.
Well, in my travels, quote, end of quote, because of my work and the fact that I've gone public with it, as I told you a few moments ago and as we discussed, people come to me with a lot of information. So as a result, I've been involved in a number of very sensitive investigations. And the Franklin cover-up is one of those investigations. And the Franklin cover-up, there was a savings and loan in Omaha that was catering to the minorities. It was being operated by a fellow named Larry King, a black man, who was high up in the Republican Party, not Larry King Live, of course.
Right.
And they had like a $40 million shortage. The FBI and the IRS raided them because of the shortage. And there was publicity in the newspaper. And 80 children came forward as a result of this picture that appeared in the newspaper of Larry King and said, "Mommy, that man molested me." Okay? And as a result of that, that initiated the investigation. And I was called in the late 1980s to be actively involved in it, along with the former state senator John DeCamp, who's a very good friend of mine. And he has a book out called The Franklin Cover-Up, which goes into detail of this. And we found out that the children were many of the children were being taken out of foster homes, orphanages, and Boys Town at that time. I don't know if it's happened recently.
So they're getting these kids out of orphanages and foster homes, Boys Town, and what were they doing with them?
They were driving them from Omaha to Sioux City, Iowa, 184 miles away, placing them in private jets, flying to Washington, D.C. for sex orgies, and with politicians and congressmen, senators in Washington, D.C. at Larry King's mansion. He had a house there, and they have parties. And I've talked to the official photographer, Rusty Nelson. I took a statement from Rusty, and they would have a party of a regular group of people, and then the legitimate, honest people, so to speak, would leave. Then they have a private party afterwards where they have these sex orgies with these children. And Rusty had a camera. He was charged with taking pictures so they could blackmail the congressmen and senators later, of course. And also he had access to the White House. This is the Reagan-Bush administration. And unknown to the group, the Larry King's group, Rusty put his own film in every once in a while. Of course, they would control the film that he took for them. He put his own film in there, and he had his own pictures. And there was an official investigator, Gary Caradori, former Nebraska Highway Patrolman, who was also involved before I came along in the case. And Rusty contacted him, met him in Chicago, and Rusty gave him the pictures of the politicians who were being compromised through photographs. He took off in his private plane, and it exploded in midair about over Aurora, Illinois, and a farmer saw it explode. It was at night, and the plane came down, of course, crashed. The first one on the scene was a deputy sheriff. He saw the pictures. He started picking them up. An FBI agent came along, grabbed the pictures, said, "Keep your mouth shut." And I know that there were, in other words, Rusty Nelson gave Gary Caradori the pictures that were the smoking gun in that case of the politicians themselves involved in sexual exploitation of children.
How high did this go? Like how high?
Went up to the White House. There were headlines in the Washington Times.
Yeah, just for people out there watching this, Ted provided us with actual news articles and quite a few documents. So we put it up on thebleepingtruth.com for all to actually see the documents. We've already activated the link. So if anyone finds this hard to believe or hard to swallow, there are news articles that he's given me, and we put them up there for all to see. So now, talking about the Franklin cover-up, you also investigated a preschool in California, the McMartin Preschool. And I'd like you to set up the situation, because what was going on there was preschool kids complaining or telling their parents that they were getting molested at preschool. And then there was an investigation. Tell us what happened when you picked up this case.
Well, this is another huge cover-up, by the way. What happened is, back in the early 1980s, a little baby came home. See, the preschool, of course, the parents would drop the kid off in the morning, pick him up in the afternoon after they came home from work and all that sort of thing. The mother noticed blood in the child's diapers and started checking into it and found out that the child, in her opinion, had been molested at the McMartin Preschool in Manhattan Beach, California. A number of children did come forward. They had a trial. They filed charges against the grandmother, the son, Ray Bucky, and 5 others. The district attorney dropped the charges against 5. They just ended up with 2 of them. And the kids said that there were tunnels under the school. They went into the tunnels, up into a chamber. There were humans. There were adults in robes with candles, chanting. They talked about cutting up brown babies. We think they were sacrificing Mexican children. And that they went through this tunnel up into the triplex next door, a trap door in the bathroom, the triplex next door. They were placed in cars, and they were taken out of the community and prostituted.
And then brought back in.
And then brought back in. 2, 3, 4-year-old kids were being prostituted in the community.
So these kids are all telling their parents these stories.
They told the parents these stories. And so the authorities went out in 1987 looking for the tunnels. Mm-hmm. And what do you think? They didn't find any tunnels. So I had an opportunity in 1991 to take control of the property. And it had been given to Danny Davis, the attorney, and he had, for his legal fees, and he had sold it to a contractor. And so I went to saw the contractor. I said, "Look, I want to go in there and take over and look for these tunnels." He said, "Well, if you'll assume liability," and so on and so forth. So I had an attorney friend of mine draw up a contract, assume liability, and we hired an archaeologist, Dr. Gary Stickle. And we went in, and in 34 days, he said, yes, there were tunnels here. They've been filled in. Now, the first trial resulted in acquittal of the grandmother, and Ray Bucky was a hung jury. We were in the middle of the second trial when we found the tunnels. I called the DA's office, and I said, send an investigator out here, send somebody out here. We have tunnels here. We can prove there were tunnels here. So they sent an investigator named Perez, and he came out. He got out of the car. He said, what do you got? I said, well, Dr. Gary Stickle's inside. Go on in there and talk to him. I'll be in there with you. He said, no, I don't want you to come in. I said, well, why not? He said, you're too argumentative. I said, no, what do you mean too argumentative? So I went into the meeting, and he's in there. He went in, and he tells Dr. Stickle that there are no tunnels there. Dr. Stickle had said there were tunnels there.
And this guy was from UCLA, Dr. Stickle, the
He was an
archaeologist?
archaeologist. He had a doctor's degree.
Right.
And what happened, the tunnels have been filled in with debris or with dirt from another location. So you could see, if you take a knife and cut right through the ground, you can see where the natural soil was compared to the
Did
soil.
you find any evidence in those tunnels?
Oh, we found all kinds of evidence.
What did you find?
We found like 2,000 animal bones in there, and artifacts. We found vases, and all kinds of information.
Did you find anything from the kids?
No, no per se. No, nothing that would tie it into the kids. But we found the trap door.
No magazines, no nothing like of that
no,
nature?
nothing like that. But the trap door was there in the triplex next door, and one of the fellows. In fact, there was an opening, probably about 2.5, maybe a foot and a half, 2 feet. We had one of the skinny archaeology diggers go in there and take pictures of the trap door, and there was a trap door there.
Did the media pick up on this?
The media covered it up. Mainstream media covered it up. And as a matter of fact, there was an article when Dr. Gary Stickle said that there had been tunnels that had been filled in. The media did an article on it. And the first part of the article said we didn't find tunnels. The last part of the article said we found tunnels. The trick that the media uses, because most people, they read just long enough to see if the tunnels were found, then they don't read anymore, as you know. We talked about that last night.
Sure.
Or this morning. But there were tunnels there. We found them. We presented them. Now, the reason for the cover-up, this trial was 2 years, and the first trial lasted 2 years, okay? The second trial, I don't know how long it lasted. It didn't matter because it was covered up too.
What was the reason for the cover-up?
The reason for the cover-up because it identified actors, professional baseball players, professional football players, politicians, the son of the most prominent politician in Los Angeles. It was cover-up, another major cover-up, just like the McDonald case.
So when you talk about satanic activity, they're, in your estimation, they're connected through the highest levels of society.
Absolutely, absolutely. The satanic movement in this country is permeated into every level of our society. You can't tell. You get on a bus, or I give a lecture, and there's going to be a few of these people in there. Their government informants are going to be in there for sure, and they're going to be. You can't tell them from you or me or anybody else that's straight. Now, assuming you're straight, and I know you are.
Yeah. Now, from all of your investigations,
I'm kidding you, Chris.
Yeah, I know you are. But from all of your investigations and whistleblowing, aren't you afraid if these groups are out there? Aren't you afraid for your life?
I've had problems, security problems. You want me to go into more detail?
Yeah, you've had people come after you.
Well, yeah, I started out, and the FBI had 3 investigations of me. And I know because I filed a Freedom of Information request, and they got it back. And the bottom of the report say that Gunderson's considered armed and dangerous. They forgot to add with knowledge. Okay, and so I had 3 investigations of me, and then after that,
you had we have the news article up there when they shot through your office.
Well, I had my window shot out. Yeah, October 15th, 2003. I was standing by the window, about a foot and a half or 2 feet from the window, and somebody shot the window on the 2nd floor. Yeah. I've had my window shot out twice at me, and
I'm assuming you've been followed. You've been.
Oh, I've had the whole nine. After the investigation, I had a gunman waiting for me on at least 3 occasions I'm aware of, and I don't need to go in detail. We don't have time here, but I did go into detail with you, I think, earlier about that. I had the FBI put a girl on me named Pam Fawcett.
Talk about who Pam Fawcett is.
Pam Fawcett was. I was working with F. Lee Bailey on a case. And she was trying to do some work on behalf of Bailey's defendant of a drug manufacturer in Central California. And she went to Bailey, actually Ken Fishman, who worked with F. Lee Bailey on his staff, and said, "How can I help?" And they came to me, and I said, "Well, let's see if we can put her in." It was a federal drug case. I said, "Let's see if we can put her in with the locals and see what she can find out." So I tried to run a sting on law enforcement. Okay, nothing illegal about it. So I put her in with the locals. And what I didn't know is the locals and the feds were all working the case together.
So she was in with them.
So she was in with them and didn't know it at the time when I put her in there. And so she called me one day. She says, "You know those drugs that I planted on it was a key witness against Bailey's client. I planted on so and so. Well, I did. I just want to let you know he's been arrested." So they're trying to say that I told her to plant the drugs on this key witness, and if I'd agreed to that on the telephone, said, "Yeah, Pam," they would have come and arrested me.
What did you say?
I said, no, I didn't tell you to do that. And I hung up the phone, called the police. I said, if you arrested this person, it's a bad arrest. Because otherwise, I'd have been committing a crime myself.
So they were trying to entrap you and put you in jail.
They were trying to entrap me, absolutely. So they tried to use her to set me up to do something to me, to put me in jail. I got a signed statement from her.
So now the one thing...
And then let me finish now.
Yeah.
So then after that didn't work. So what they did is they put a guy named Stu Webb out, who's an FBI informant, and tried to get him to put information out about me, disinformation. For example, like he's put out on the internet that I was kicked out of the FBI for practicing satanic ceremonies in the federal building, and just absolutely unbelievable.
So what they do is they sling the propaganda machine at you. So instead of trying to do anything to you or arrest you, if they can't do that, they'll just discredit your name and smear your name.
And it's worked.
And it's worked because people start believing that.
So a certain percentage of people believe it.
Well,
I'm a spy for the government, for example.
Right. Well, they don't want to believe in, I'm assuming, satanic cults.
That's one of the reasons.
Do you know what I mean? So that it's easier to believe that,
you're...
And
then the latest thing, Chris, is I was living in Las Vegas, and a year ago last May, I was being poisoned. They were shooting poison in my car. They were shooting poison into my condominium in the air. And there's no question, because I went and had tests taken. I had arsenic and cyanide in me. I had tests. I'm an investigator. I know when things are not right, and I'm going to find out why. And so I moved overnight from Las Vegas to a small town in Nebraska, 296 people, Claytonia, Nebraska, and they've followed me there. They're out there.
Now, when you say they, is it the satanic cult? Or is it the government? Who is the one that?
They, in my opinion.
Yeah, who is they to you?
They, in my opinion, first of all, when you have a covert operation as extensive as this, right, where they have teams of men running surveillances on you, and there's no return financially, right? It has to be a government entity.
Right, because the corporation's goal is to make profit.
It's to make money, make profit. Right. So this is definitely a covert government operation. There's no other explanation for it. So that's who they are. And mixed in with that, you have the satanic cults. And the satanic cults are part of it, and this covert operation is using the satanic cults to their advantage.
Now, when you say cults, and I know I've asked you this, and a lot of people are curious of this, there's the Freemasons out there. There's what they'll call the Skull and Bones, the Illuminati. What are they in accordance to what you're calling the satanic cults?
Well, first of all, the Masonic organization is a great organization. Mm-hmm. Okay,
it's a philanthropic,
and it's a great organization. But there are people at the top, again, infiltration, who are involved in this satanic movement. Now, in order to really explain this, you have to go back 235 or 35 years or so. The Illuminati was established in 1773. The Rothschild family in England ordered a defrocked Catholic priest, Adam Weishaupt, to come up with the 25 goals to take over the world. Those 25 goals were announced on May the 1st, 1776. Corrupt the youth through sex and drugs. Control the media, which they do, mainstream media. Elect our people to office. Elect our people as advisors, to infiltrate law enforcement and the military. There's 25 goals. They're very clearly defined.
So what group did they channel those goals through? Was it the Freemasons that they put that through?
The Freemasons, no. Some of the leaders of the Freemasons are involved in this, but they channel this through various organizations, through the satanic cults themselves. So that gives you the basis. There's a great book out called Pawns in the Game. Mm-hmm. That explains all this.
Now, we have a lot of callers. I believe that we're going to take a few, and we'll see what the viewers have to say. Viewer, you're on the air. What's your name and what's your comment or question?
My name is Jim, and I have to believe everything he is saying is the truth. My religion believes is there are so much satanic in our upper government that is just waiting for the Antichrist to come into control, and that is going to happen so soon. I'd say within the next 10 to 20 years, you will see the Antichrist come out into Jerusalem, and all these satanic cults. This is all part of our end times, which we are in, whether you believe it or not. And is there somebody that can stop these people from kidnapping these kids, and they know about it, and that are in the government, and there's not somebody that will help these poor children?
Good question, Jim.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ted.
Jim, I have a report that I put together. I put together a tremendous number of reports. All the information I'm telling you now is documented tonight.
Well, we put it up on the Bleeping Truth website.
Right. And then my report is called The Finders, the CIA covert operation kidnapping children. I have given this report to the FBI half a dozen times.
They don't want it, right?
They don't want it. They won't come talk to me. The FBI ignores me. As a matter of fact, when I retired, I'm the highest level FBI agent to ever come out and be public like this. And when I retired, I joined the Society of Former Special Agents of the FBI. I've been kicked out of that.
Yeah, we have a document that basically they threw you out of the fraternal order where all the FBI agents...
Because of my criticism of the FBI and the government. But I have gone to the FBI, given them my finder's report a half a dozen times, and they won't even come talk to me.
Okay, we got another caller.
Thanks, Jim. You're right.
Viewer, you're on the air. What's your name or comment?
Yes, hi. Actually, I've got two questions for you regarding the 1950s. The first is regarding J. Edgar Hoover. Often it's been said regarding organized crime that he was in denial about that. He said there was never truly like a mob or, I guess, a mafia in the sense. What are your thoughts about that? And the second question is, since you were a FBI agent during the 50s, and when you got the Joseph McCarthy hearings and the whole issue for looking for those who were truly the Red Scare, I'd just like to get your thoughts and just the atmosphere of what that must have been like, if you then compared to what even like today and in our current situation, for as quote, the terrorism. So I appreciate the time.
Great question.
Good questions. Okay, it just so happens before I worked Special Inquiry White House Matters, I worked organized crime racketeering for 2.5 years as a supervisor in Washington D.C. So I actually worked there during the Bobby Kennedy, Jack Kennedy administration. And what happened there is there were two factions inside the FBI. There was a faction. Bill Sullivan, who was one of our assistant directors and was liaison on the Kennedy assassination with the Warren Commission, Bill Sullivan said there is a mafia. A fellow named Al Staffeld, who was the unit chief of organized crime, said there was no mafia. So
what did J. Edgar Hoover believe? Hoover
went with the man who was the expert, supposedly the expert on organized crime. And so he took this information under consideration, and based on the fact that even there were two factions that were in disagreement, he went with the first faction, with the second one actually.
Which is there is no mafia.
There is no mafia.
So he took that belief.
He took that belief, but then we had 56, I think it was, Appalachia, and the mob all met in Upper New York, and that's when the whole thing broke open. So Hoover was look, when you get in a position like that, I had over 700 personnel under my command. I only knew what I was being spoon-fed, right? So that's what happened to J. Edgar Hoover, I think, as far as the mafia is concerned. The second question was...
He said with McCarthy, there was... What was that like compared to...
McCarthy was 100% on target. He was right. They to this day, the mainstream media ridicules the McCarthy era, McCarthy this, McCarthy that. He was right. The communists did infiltrate, and the communists are involved, based on my information, with the cult movement. So they are taking over.
So McCarthy, when he was saying that there's communists and we got to take out all these communists and create that blacklist, you're saying he was right, that there was an infiltration of communists?
Yeah, absolutely, there was. There is.
But were they a clear and present danger to our government?
Look at what's happening today. That's what's happening today. The cult, the mob are involved with this movement to take over the country from within. It's called, basically, the big umbrella is called the Illuminati. And these people are under the umbrella.
So that's where we get the Patriot Act and where they start saying that we need to strip away. So you feel that this is an agenda they've had in play for years? This is an agenda
agenda's been in place for 230-some years. The whole terrorist movement is a phony movement. It's been orchestrated and perpetrated by this covert element within our government in order to pass establish Homeland Security, pass the Patriot Act, take away many of our constitutional rights and civil liberties. That's what it's all about.
But what you're saying is those events did happen, but our government had a role to play in the terrorist, right? You're not saying that they didn't happen.
No, they
did Oklahoma City, you're saying they did, but...
Oklahoma City happened. World Trade Center car
bombing. But you're saying that our government had a direct role in those events.
I'm saying that there is a covert element within our government that had a direct role in that. Well, now go back there. Covert overt, right? Mm-hmm. There's a covert element, yes.
So there's a whole group of people that are in the overt element. In other words, they're doing the day-to-day job. They really are FBI agents, they're police officers. They have no clue, right?
They're good,
honest people.
Good people in the FBI, police department, CIA, NSA. But there is a covert black operation that's active in this country. Very active.
Now, my question to you is, and I think...
Those are good questions, by the way.
Yeah, they were great questions. My question to you is, in the government, there seems to be a mass, I guess, perversion in there towards, like you said, sexual proclivities, whether it's homosexual, pedophilia. Is this a new thing in the last 50 years, or is this something that's always been there as far as power and people in power?
It's been there for years. As far as I'm concerned, I'm sure it's been there for years.
So in the 50s, there was things going on that are going on today, right?
Yeah, it's been going on for years, as far as I'm concerned. But it's only that old saying, you have to crawl before you can walk. Well, that's what's happening. We're starting to walk. We were crawling for years, as far as knowledge of this is concerned. Now we're starting to walk. Pretty soon we're going to be trotting. Pretty soon we're going to be running, because people are learning more and more about what's going on. Now, I've been in this movement for 28 years. And when I first came out and started talking this way, I did it gradually because I didn't have as much knowledge then as I do now. But even though I didn't have the knowledge then that I do now, people said, this guy's a kook. Well, now it's proven that I'm right.
Yeah, with the finders, just so people to know, because you actually furnished us, there was a documentary team from Europe, right? From England that came over and made a documentary on the fact that, because there was a Washington Post article on that?
There's been a Washington Times article.
Washington Times article. There was a documentary crew that did a piece on the finders. In other words, them putting in boys' prostitution ring into D.C. And what happened was, and we actually have the TV guide schedule you had given us. We put it up on the website, where they had the actual documentary in there on the Discovery Channel. This was in '92, I believe.
Right.
Was it?
No, May the 3rd, 1993.
Very good memory.
1994.
94. But then what happened was they changed the program schedule real quick, and then they put some animal show on there. They wouldn't put the finders. What happened in that interim? Why was the Discovery Channel not allowed to play that documentary?
Well, what happened? Certain members of Congress allowed. We're going back to the Franklin cover-up case now. The kids being used as toys for their sexual exploitation in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. What happens is this camera crew came over from Yorkshire TV in England for 7 months. In fact, they interviewed me and John DeCamp and so forth. Mm-hmm. John DeCamp's a hero, by the way. He's a Vietnam veteran. He's a hero. They were going. It was scheduled to be aired on May the 3rd, 1994. Listed in TV Guide. At the last minute, certain members of Congress found out about it. They threatened the cable industry with legislation, and they pulled it off the air. They didn't put it on the air.
So for this one show, they were threatening their FCC license, and they had to pull it off their program directory.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. Now, what I did, I ordered a copy of that guide. It was in there at one time.
Sure.
I ordered a copy of that guide, and it's no longer in there. They reprinted the whole book, obviously. So what I did is I went to the LA Times TV Guide section for May the 3rd, 1994, and it's listed. I went to the Philadelphia Inquirer on the East Coast through a friend of mine.
We got it up right now for people to see.
And it's listed.
Right.
Conspiracy of silence. So, that's how powerful these people are. Here's your documentation.
So now we're getting towards the end of this. Why do you do this? Why do you go on radio stations and programs? Why do you tell people about these things, especially when it endangers your life? And at the same time, people, you've been excommunicated by your fellow FBI agents. Why do you go out and spread the word around the country? And also, you still help on cases around the country. Lawyers fly you in, and wherever you could help someone, you do. Why do you keep doing this at 78 years of age?
I have a conscience. I'm a Christian. I care about people. I love my country. Love my family. I have the training and the experience, and I have the knowledge in order to make this public. I've given up golf. I've given up everything in order to become involved and wake up America. I'm doing the best I can to wake up America. As I said earlier, I give away DVDs. I give away information. And so that's what I'm doing. I use my retirement money to become involved in these issues. I've got $17,000 in the McMartin case. I've got $30,000 in the Jeffrey McDonald case. I had a young black girl kidnapped off a bus bench in L.A. Patty Franklin by LAPD cops. They took her out and gangbanged her. I put $25,000 in that case, and it just goes on. I get my money. I donate my retirement money to these causes. Is what I do.
So now we're down to the last 5 minutes, and you've had a lot of interesting experience happen throughout your life. What are some of the things that really stand out throughout your career in the FBI?
In the FBI?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've had several interesting experiences in the FBI. We had advanced information about a bank robbery in McEwen, Tennessee, a little old country town. And it's a little old southern town with the wooden sidewalks and an overhead.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, the bay window of the bank, you could see in from the street. And we knew when the bank robbers pulled up there that they're going to check the bay window. So we had agents planted in there, and I put them in wigs and dresses, so that if they came up and looked, they'd think there were women in there, not men. We were waiting for them. And long story short, they didn't come in on us then. We found out they came in later. We did get them out in the woods where they were hiding, because they dumped the evidence out there and went on so and so. It's a lot deep. That was kind of an interesting experience. We had a shootout in a parking lot in Memphis, Tennessee, near the airport, involving 3 bank robbers, and they'd taken some bank robbery. They'd taken some bank tellers as hostage, so that we couldn't shoot at them. They were shooting at us. So we had a police officer who was shot. I helped to rescue a police officer who was out in the open. That was interesting.
So in the FBI, you had a lot of hijackings, bank robberies, and
bank robberies. Yeah, I did
that.
Everything. I was counter-espionage in New York. Picked up a 10 most wanted in Connecticut in my day, and the skyjacking, of course, July 12, 1972, negotiating with those 2 terrorists. So I had a lot of interesting experiences.
Do you miss the FBI?
No.
Why not?
Well, particularly now, because the FBI has been infiltrated by the Illuminati, in my opinion. This is my opinion.
So you believe after J. Edgar Hoover died, the FBI quickly became politicized once he had the stronghold, especially with his files. So they didn't want anyone like you or another FBI chief taking over.
They didn't want anyone with the FBI background taking over. So
what did they have take over?
Well, they had an admiral take over, and they've had judges take over.
So here you have all these FBI chiefs. So you were in charge of Southern California. There's others in different regions, and instead of any of you taking over the FBI, and you know how it works better than anybody, they had judges, they've had admirals. In other words, they've politicized the FBI.
Absolutely.
So the FBI doesn't hold the same kind of clout it had under J. Edgar Hoover.
I did an interview. It's on DVD video, and it's captioned 911 failure, the new versus the old FBI. The new FBI has nothing that they can offer in the way of what we offered.
The old FBI had integrity.
We had integrity. We were the greatest law enforcement agency, I'm convinced, at least investigative agency in history.
What do you make when they start pointing out what J. Edgar Hoover was a cross-dresser, and they start hammering J. Edgar Hoover's own behind the scenes?
Well, I don't think he was. I think he probably had trick photography. The reason I say that is because this didn't come out until after he'd been dead for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that the person that actually originally brought it out was questionable. Her character was questionable. She was the heir to a liquor fortune. So I don't think it's true myself.
You think they might have tried to discredit him since he had all the information on all the politicians?
And they tried to discredit me. Look what they've tried to do to me.
Well, Ted, I just want to thank you for flying from